Today we're going to talk about our third and last paper in our Humanities 115 class, and this is our critical thinking project. It's intended to be a culmination project for the class, and we're going to walk through it in 3 steps, okay, which is kind of normal for us, right? This paper is the critical thinking project, and so I think it's important for us to remember our critical thinking definition, the systematic evaluation or formulation of beliefs or statements by rational standards. And we actually got this way back on page 4. Okay. So it's been part of our class the whole time. The name of our class is critical thinking. The name of our book is The Power of Critical Thinking. So it's only appropriate that I put you to a task. Now, the critical thinking project has 10 possibilities. You get to choose one, okay? And then you have to kind of walk through the steps to answer the problem. Okay, so this is more like a how-to / instructions with a little bit of philosophy behind it. Okay, so what's the best way to do this? And why did you pick that way? Okay, in 3 pages or so. And there's a good range of things on the page, things you can pick. Purchasing a vehicle, choosing a friend or partner, cancer treatment, fake news, political energy and environment. You're a job applicant. What's the best way to apply for a job? You're the first person at the scene of an accident or a crime. What do you do? And then a couple of different kind of retail. You have an irate customer. What do you do with that? Okay, so those kinds of things. This is a researched argument. Okay, so you will need sources. You need at least 3 sources for your work. Okay, now your sources don't necessarily have to be library sources. They can be, especially for your background information, making sure that you have stuff to do in that area. Maybe you've never bought a car before. Okay, you inherit it from your parents, you never owned a car, whatever. What are the things that go into that? How do you get financing? All those kinds of things. Now, some of those things can be library resources. Some of those could be your dad, or your mom, or your uncle, or your grandpa, or whatever. Whoever you think is a good source for figuring out what's the best way to do this. And there are a few others on there that maybe you've never worked retail, and you're interested, so talk to somebody who has. Okay, do an interview. But you need 3 sources other than yourself for this paper. 3 pages, double-spaced, all that kind of fun stuff. And I just noticed your instructions say a hard copy. Well, we're online, so you're going to post your copy for me, of course. A few things. Choose a scenario. Maybe you can narrow it down to 1 or 2, maybe 3 things, and then start your research. Which one is going the best? Which one can you find the most stuff on? Which can you do in the time allotted? That's the big deal too. There are a few things that you have to do for this paper, due date wise. The first one is I want a proposal, about a page. Tell me which one you've chosen. Why did you choose that one? And then what do you think your answer is going to be? Okay, so what is the best way to deal with fake news? Okay, multiple sources, don't listen to the news, make sure that you're looking at stuff you don't agree with, all those kinds of things that we get from chapter 4, okay, chapter 5. All kinds of interesting possibilities here, but I want you to write out kind of, here's what I'm thinking. Now, maybe through your research, you change your mind. That's okay. I just want a preliminary, okay, here's my assignment, here's what I'm going to do, here's what I think. Okay, so I want you to have something down on paper. Send that in to me on 11/20. That's Tuesday. That's the week of Thanksgiving. We only have 2 days of classes that week, so you have that little bit of time there to do things. The rough draft, as far as you can get with your research and things, is due the next Thursday. Okay, so the 29th. Final draft is due, our last real day of classes for this class is the 13th of December. That's our last day for lots of things, except for the exam, which will go on the next Sunday. So this is not a hard paper to do, but I really want you to think about it in the context of critical thinking, okay, or else it doesn't work. On the second page, you have the first page of your assignment sheet is the list of project problems. The second page is instructions and due dates. Under architecture, it says, okay, create a procedure, list, plan of action. Reflect on how your perspectives and assumptions may have affected your choices. Okay, so if I'm going to purchase a vehicle, in case you don't know, I'm a car girl. I like certain things about cars. Fast is good, but I like gas mileage too. I'm not sure I'd be happy with a Prius, although it would be better for the planet. I know I don't want a muscle car because they don't ride well, and I'm old and my bones don't like that jarring thing. So maybe I've decided on I don't know. I've decided on I like the new Honda Accords rather, and they are amazing, aerodynamic. They look sleek. Oh, my favorite car is a Mitsubishi Eclipse, by the way. Um, I have my druthers on that, right? I know what I like, and so if I have my choice between um, the Toyota Corolla, which we drive, and the Mitsubishi Eclipse, which I love, what do? Okay. So I have a bias in that particular way. I want something that is sleek and looks nice and is a pretty color, but I also want something that goes 0 to 60 fairly quickly, um, but doesn't eat my gas. How do I balance that out? Okay, so all of those things can go into your paper. Okay, so those are my dilemmas. How do I figure them out? Well, okay, I have this much money, and I drive about 50 miles one way every day. Well, okay, so maybe not the Eclipse. Maybe the Corolla is a better choice, as long as it's pretty. Okay, so anyway, keep that up. Keep that in mind when you're walking through this. Make sure you hit all the points. I need to see your process in the paper. Okay, so this is sort of a what has gone before paper for those of you who role play. How did you get there? How are we here? Okay, I bought the Eclipse. Um, how do we get there? That's the big deal. Okay, so keep that in mind. The proposal, you are not locked into that particular plan, but this is your first kind of feeling about the paper, about what the problem is going to end up with. And we'll walk through things. As usual, give me an email if you have trouble, if you run into problems. No big deal. We'll talk about it. Okay. Now this one, this is your end and drop dead date all in one. Okay, it's 13th of December is our last day for real work. The only thing I take after that is the test. Okay, the last exam for. So keep that in mind. Once we get to this point in the semester, we don't have a lot of wiggle room. So set yourself down, do what you got to do. Okay, so keep that in mind as you go along. And as usual, make sure you talk to me if you run into trouble. Now, the rubric for this is the same as the other two have been. Professionalism, clarity, relevance, reasoning, and utility. Okay? Walk through things. Make sure you're using accurate information. Make sure that you're giving the correct context. That is especially important for this one. You are the context. So maybe you started off on the wrong path and you had to kind of back up and try again. That's okay. Put it in the paper. Okay? 3 pages. That's all you have to have. So talk to me, make sure you're writing on the right page, everything is going well. I'd be more than happy to spend time with you on Skype or whatever we need to do. But at this point, you have your assignment. Walk through the assignment sheet. Excuse me. Make sure you have what you need. 3 sources doesn't necessarily mean library sources, but it can be. Friends, family, coworkers, that works too. Just make sure that you have information on interviews. That was the other thing I was going to show you. If you have an interview, okay, how far over can I go? I can go a bit. On your Works Cited page or whatever, you're going to have their name, okay? So, your cousin John, okay, the date. I'm kind of doing a little bit bigger. You have the date. Oh no, sorry. Yeah. Personal interview. And then, okay, so it was the 23rd of November, 2018, because he was at your house for Thanksgiving, and that's it, okay? If you're doing one for APA, okay, this is an MLA, if you're doing one for APA, then it's their last name, so Smith, J, 23 November 2018, personal interview, and you're done, okay? Use this on your references page, use this on your Works Cited page. Remember, if you have questions about citations and stuff, check the Purdue OWL first. If you can't find it or it doesn't make sense to you, email me. Hey, here's what I have. How do I cite this? I'm good for that, okay? So keep that in mind. Again, hang in there. We're almost done.